It's been such a pleasure to work with you over the last year as we've planned other events at Podar and now here together for Learn Shift India. And Dr. Podar, can I please also extend my warm thanks to you and for your support, your leadership of this work. And to all of you, thank you so much for joining us. As you look around the room, you need to turn that down or turn it off. As you look around the room, you might think there's a great diversity of people here. I'm just going to turn this off. Great diversity of people here. And you might think there's people from Delhi, from Mumbai, from Bangalore, people who work in policy, people who work as practitioners. There's entrepreneurs amongst us trying to challenge the status quo from that area. There's social entrepreneurs. There's those representing large corporations like KISS and Microsoft and Tata. And you might be wondering, what do all these people have in common to come together? And Avnitya and I think that the main thing we have in common is the willingness to challenge the status quo. That for many of us, when we're in the box, when we're kept into staying the way things have always been, we're frustrated. In fact, we want to be sticky beaks for the new ideas and the unexplored, and try to find new ways to bring learning to young people that haven't had it before. So why India? At the moment, I'm an Australian by background, and you might think, well, it's kind of strange for an Australian to be here hosting and curating this event of Learn Shift India. And in fact, what I love to do is be in the schools. As much as I'm going to enjoy the discussion we'll have today, I love to be with young people. And I remember when I first visited Podar in Mumbai, and I went around to some classrooms and I said, I'm from Australia. What do you know about Australia to a group of young students? And I was wondering what they might say. Would they say, what about the beaches? No, one young boy put up his hand. I think he was about 9. And he said, do you know Ricky Ponting? And if you don't follow cricket, Ricky Ponting is one of our better cricket players who's just retired. So I must say I'm a little worried if Australia plays India now, that you've still got Sachin Tendulkar playing, but Ricky Ponting has now stopped. But indeed, our countries share a rich connection in sporting competition. As part of the old Commonwealth, for the good or the bad of that, we have deep connections in the English language. Increasingly, we have wonderful young people from India traveling to study in Australia, to share your understanding from here with us. But to be honest, I'm here for mainly selfish reasons, because I think India is going to be one of the global leaders. In fact, you already are. A population of 1.2 billion people, huge innovation sector, rapidly increasing higher education sector. Indeed, the call on India is greater than ever before for the new decades. That there'll be a shift of power from the US and Europe, the places that rose for a while, but now Asia is rising again. And so indeed, it's not the rise of India, but the re-rise. India has always been on the global stage, and perhaps only for just a few hundred years has dropped off for Europe, but now is coming back again. But my question is, if India will take up this role in leadership, in innovation, in international relations globally, can its education system meet this challenge? Can its education system truly become a world-class education system for all young people, that all young people in India would be equipped for global leadership? And the reason why we need to have this type of discussion is, well, the future is not what it used to be, is it? Does anyone else feel here that the world is accelerating at a rapid pace? You come along with a new tablet or computer and you're very proud of it, and then you look around the room and realize it's one of the oldest around. That things are changing so quickly, so rapidly, and yet so much about our school systems feel like it's staying the same. And indeed, one of the big drivers for us to rethink and reimagine our education system is a very different type of economy now. In fact, often when I'm speaking in the United States, they're very worried about India, because they used to think that they would export all the jobs that they didn't really want to do very well. They would export manufacturing towards Asia. They would export maybe call centers and other things. But now they realize that Indians are better software engineers, better engineers, accountants, the higher level professions. And now in the global knowledge economy, as long as you can plug into the internet, pretty much any type of work can be now done anywhere in the world. But also in a global knowledge economy, what we find is that where someone
position is in the social hierarchy, the level of mobility that they have, is no longer just about their family wealth and background, but most of all about what is in their minds. That where there are skills and knowledge, there are opportunities. And so we need a system that provides skills and knowledge for all young people. Howard Gardner, based at the University of Harvard, speaks about what he thinks are the big 21st century skills that all young people will need. Indeed, what we're going to need across India is we need everybody to become powerful and resilient learners to keep up with a rapidly changing world. And he says there's 5 minds, 5 ways that we need all young people to think. One is a disciplinary mind. They need to be literate and numerate and have deep understanding of at least one discipline, whatever that is. But beyond that, a synthesizing mind to integrate ideas. The creative mind, so important for innovation. The respectful mind and the ethical mind. Can India's education system currently provide these things for all young people? What we know from places like Finland, from places like South Korea, that have gone on this journey decades before, gone from a system that provided education only to a few to now providing some of the best education on the planet, is that they commit themselves to designing a system that unleashes the talent of all people. That every young mind that isn't engaged, every young mind that isn't being literate and numerate and creative and having new opportunities to follow their passions is a waste of human resources here in India. So this is our challenge. We already know India has a world-class cricket team. And we already know India has world-class universities. The IITs are esteemed across the world. Everywhere I go, people know of them. They know their graduates. We know India has incredible high quality for some, perhaps even the best students in the world. But the challenge now that we've gained quality for some, but low equity, is to become a world-class education system, which is both high quality and high equity. Some of us call it having a high floor, that everyone has a high floor of learning, that no one is left out of learning. But then there's no ceiling. The sky's the limit. And we can see that when we go and travel to a school like in Podar. So this is the challenge. How do we have a world-class education system for all? Now, the reason why we call it Learn Shift is because if you think about the quality of schools in India, there are some unbelievably world-class, best of the best schools here. And the practitioners amongst us represent these schools. There are many great schools, good schools, but increasingly, data from, for example, the PISA study or other studies start to tell us that even though many of the schools we interact with are some of the world's best, that many young people are in schools where teaching and learning is still not of a sufficient quality for them to develop basic cognitive skills. And what we imagine in the Learn Shift of India is the distribution of schools, which of course there are schools up here, but indeed would shift across, that every school would be a good school. That whatever school you went to, whether you're in a rural location or a city, that you could turn up to the local school and be absolutely assured you're going to receive a good education. Every school a good school, which has been the mantra of Singapore over the last decade. That it's not that some with money would be able to access the best and others would just turn up. But no, at all levels of the income distribution, there'd be great schools, good schools. And so how do we do it? Well, this morning I just wanted to share 3 ideas. 3 strategies, I think, that we need to engage with as we launch this discussion of a learn shift in India. And the first one is whatever system we design, whatever school we think about, whatever technology we're building, we need to design for effective and meaningful human learning. Very basic, actually. You see, I get to spend far too much time in old universities like Oxford and Cambridge. And as I've looked through the evidence that have been compiled over 30 years about school effectiveness, what makes a school work, and secondly about school system reform, there's only one lesson you really need to know. So if you want to go and study for the next 5 years, you can do that, or you can just remember this one thing. There's only one thing that matters. Having an unrelenting focus on learning and teaching. Notice I say learning and teaching, not teaching and learning, and the relationship between them. The sad thing about what's happened around the world in policy circles, at school leadership levels, at teacher training, is so often we get caught up in everything else but learning. Let's change the curriculum. Let's change accountability. Let's change the governance structure of schools. Let's make technology that is very sexy and easy to sell. But don't worry so much about the learning. We're making lots of profit. Let's think about teacher training, but only talk about philosophy and sociology and important theoretical constructs. But then our young people turn up in schools as teachers and they haven't learned the practice and art of being a great instructional master. That so often we have spent billions and billions of dollars but forgotten to design for effective human learning. Because education is overrated, but learning is what it's all about. So I have a question for you. When is learning most effective and meaningful? Would you mind, and it's kind of my style to sometimes allow opportunities just to speak on your table. Could you have a think about one thing that you think is very important when you think about creating effective and meaningful learning? So learning is most effective and meaningful when it is. Could you turn to the person next to you? Just introduce yourself if you haven't, and just talk about that question. Do that for me now. You can make lots of noise.